Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Headbangers Closet. This is my Metal Tag 2026 video. The Metal Tag was started by Heavy Metallurgy, those guys over there, and really like doing this. First one I did was last year. It was really fun, and they said in the description last year when I first jumped on it, great way to get to know each other, see what each other has in their collections, and then just kind of stuff for each of us as well to kind of remember some of the gems in our collection, things we might not have pulled out in a while, but really dig it. Had a lot of fun last year, a lot of fun with all the responses. So looking forward to jumping on it again this year. So let's get right into it, shall we? So the first question is Giddy Up 2026. This is the year of the Fire Horse. Show an album with a horse on the cover or a horse-like creature, such as a Pegasus, are permitted, but you lose some street cred if you show a unicorn. So the low-hanging fruit there was King Diamond's Abigail, but I went with this one. Iron Maiden's Made in England '88 live album, great live album. I saw this, they kind of, how Maiden does it where they bring back the tour. I saw this tour when they did it, back in the early 2000s in Houston, Texas. Really, really great stuff. But Made in England, there's the horse right there. Awesome live record. So I don't remember where this was. Does it show where it was? It's probably like Maiden tends to do that tour. They pull, okay, here it is live. It was right on the front. Live recorded Birmingham on the November 27th and 28th, 1988. And amazing tour for the Seventh Son of a Seventh Son tour. And like I said, I saw this tour when they kind of did the reboot of it back in the early 2000s. Awesome stuff. So there's my Giddy Up album with a horse on it. Next one we have is Nostalgia. Show an album that you do not think is very good, but you can't bring yourself to get rid of it. So I kind of got two of them, because one of them was a live record. And the main one that I kind of thought of was Metallica's S&M 2. I love Metallica. They're my favorite band. And I'll never get rid of this thing, but I don't ever hardly listen to this. If I'm listening to Metallica on streaming and one of the songs off this album comes on, I may or may not even, skip forward. There's some cool stuff on here. I'm obviously, everybody loves The Outlaw Torn, was really cool. They break out a couple of the songs from Hardwired, which this album or this live show was right after Hardwired. Touring cycle ended, but you get Confusion on here. Where's the other ones? Halo on Fire sounds really cool. Confusion sounds really cool. And then, of course, you've got the Anesthesia Pulling Teeth done by the celloist from the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. But the reason I don't like this, S&M 1 is cool for the new songs, but I don't really like that one either. I'm not a fan of the symphony. Some people might think I'm crazy for that. I like Metallica. I want to hear Metallica live, not with a symphony orchestra. But this one is very special to me because I was at both of these shows. It was supposed to be a one-off on a Friday night at the San Francisco at the Chase Center where the Golden State Warriors play basketball. And I don't know if any of you guys remember that, but that was back, they put the tickets on sale, and it was the bot thing. Fans were trying to get them. I got one at a killer seat, literally first section of the stands, right there. So I was almost eye level with the guys in the band, but I just bought one seat. People who were trying to buy 2 or 4, even numbers, they couldn't get them. They sold out like this, all the good seats. And, it was the bot thing. Metallica got word of it. Later in the day, they put out a statement, hey, just chill out, hang on, bear with us while we kind of look things over. A day or so later, they're like, hey, we're going to do another show on that Sunday. I was able to get tickets to that one as well. Again, just bought one. So I was at both of these shows, but I don't like this. I rarely play it. Kind of disappointed in it. I don't think it sounds that great. Just like the first one, too much of the symphony. I could kind of live with if it was just in the background, but it's right there a lot of times in your face. So I'm not really a big fan of it. And then if we're talking about, actual, albums, Slayer's Divine Intervention. Love Slayer, but they had a kind of a string of a handful of records in the 90s that I really didn't like very much. And out of those 3, I don't particularly care for this one the most. I hardly ever pull this out, but it's in my collection. I'm not going to get rid of it because I love Slayer. Got to have the whole collection, right? Kind of come back to that in a little bit. Next one, we have Goat. show your favorite new album released in 2025. My favorite album of 2025 was Electrocutioner's Heartbringer. I don't have that because they didn't have it on vinyl, and I've mentioned it before. I don't have a CD player right now, so I'm not really buying CDs. I've got thousands of CDs just sitting on a rack right here to my right. I don't play them. So I'm going to go with Warfield's With the Old Breed for thrash. Awesome record. And then an album I've talked about a bunch of times as well as Warbringer. As well as Warfield, rather. It's 1914's Veribus Unitas. I can never pronounce that correctly. But this thing has grabbed me like hardly any albums in my life ever have. And I have not stopped listening to this thing since it came out. Awesome black and death metal, World War I, stuff. I think it was... Steven over at Harmless Rebel mentioned that nobody does war metal like Sodom, and I think these guys give Sodom a run for their money when it comes to war metal, but this is all like kind of true story type of stuff, so check it out, 1914. Okay, next one is number 4. We have From Beyond. Show a favorite album that is not a heavy metal album. One of my all-time favorite bands is The Cars, not a metal band at all. This is Heartbeat City. This is the one that has all the MTV hits on. But I just love this album. I love The Cars. I love every single album they've done. I've got them all. And, if I don't really feel like listening to metal, it's going to be The Cars or maybe Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. A lot of like 80s new wave, bands like Duran Duran, stuff like that. I'm an 80s kid, so I like that stuff. I'm a metalhead through and through, but if I just don't feel like listening to metal, maybe if I see something on a TV commercial, I'll put on something. But The Cars, Heartbeat City, love this stuff. All right. Next one, we have The Unknown. Show an album you can't remember ever hearing somebody talk about on YouTube, I guess other than myself. I've got 2 of them. I've got Disarray's Religious Disease. Killer new school thrash album from these guys. They got a new album that came out, I think, at the tail end of last year, and I haven't really given it a listen, so I got to do it. But this thing's awesome. I've talked about it before and haven't really heard anybody talk about it on YouTube. And then for death metal, another killer band I've been talking about for a while. This album came out in 2024. This is Hemotoxin, When Time Becomes Lost. Just killer death metal from California. Really, really good stuff. Check it out if you haven't done so already. Great vocals, great riffs, great solos, awesome stuff. And then last but not least on this one, because this is another great record, I could just choose which one I wanted to talk about. But Coffin Storms, Arcana Rising, again, a 2024 release. Great stuff. I think Denmark, Norway, I think maybe. But picture like Merciful Fate meets Queensryche meets Agent Steel kind of stuff. Really, really epic riffs, a little bit longer tunes. But check these guys out. Coffin Storm, Arcane Rising, another band and album I haven't really heard too much talk about on YouTube. Okay. So then next one, number 6, Frontloaded. Show an album whose first song is the best song. It is my favorite band and my favorite album for my favorite band, and perhaps my favorite song for my favorite band, favorite album. It's Metallica's Justice for All. The song was Blackened. You guys all know it and love it. Blackened, I kind of go back and forth a lot between Blackened and Creeping Death as my favorite Metallica song, but more often than not it's Blackened, and that song is just amazing. It's the best song on the album. It's just a great way to kick off the greatest record of all time, in my opinion. All right, number 8. All right, I think I'm like way out of order here. All right, here we go. No, I'm not. All right, so Fail. Show an album you bought that disappointed you. It's Crypta's latest release. I forgot the name of it here. Shades of Sorrows. So I picked this up on a pre-order, and it came with a slip mat, and then it was on limited edition splatter vinyl. And honestly, the album before this was amazing, just super heavy. Crypta, all-female death metal band from Brazil, and they are heavy, they are fast, they have amazing guitar work. But this one right here, just missed the mark for me. I just didn't like it. I think it's a little bit more brutal than the last one, but just kind of the riffs aren't as sustained. I don't think the solos are as good. And of course, Jessica, who I think is the all-star of the band, left the band after this album. It's good, but it's not that great. Really, really disappointed when I gave it a full spin. And I've listened to it, a handful of times. It just still, to me, it just isn't hit with me. Maybe after this video, I'll do it again, give it another listen, but it's just really not resonating with me. I'm really disappointed in that album. And it doesn't happen very often. Next one. Let's see. Show an album you played in 2025. It's called The Return. Show an album you played in 2025 that you hadn't played in over a year. And I've got a couple of these. The first one's Iron Angels, Hell's Crossfire. Really cool stuff. This is on Splatter Vinyl. I think it's from High Roller Records, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, High Roller Records. Really cool, speed thrash from the 80s. Really like this album. Haven't listened to it in a long time, but I did spin it not too long ago. And then an album I love, and I cannot remember the last time I spun this album, but it is great. When I show you guys, you're going to be like, what the hell are you thinking, man? This album's great. But it's Kicks Blow My Fuse. Awesome 80s metal, hair metal, if you will, sleaze metal. Great stuff. I kind of link these guys, in that. Not so much Poison and Motley Crue, but like the Dangerous Toys and Cinderella kind of stuff. They're a little bit better musicians, a little bit grittier tunes, but really like this album. I hadn't listened to it in a long time, but I played it in 2025. Let's see. Joker. Show an album with hilarious cover art. And it's actually going to be a single. It is Laz Rocket's Holiday in Cambodia. I just love that. With the napalm in the background, and then there's the soldier guy on the beach with the bomb and the hot girl. And I guess just for reference, the soldier guy, here he is right there on one of their full lengths. But I just think this album cover is hilarious. I love it. It's great stuff. So that's my Joker. Next one, Yearning. Name an album you're anxiously awaiting for 2026. Anthrax. Creator and Megadeth come out this month. Looking forward to hearing both. Actually, no, does Creator come out this month? Maybe it's not this month. I know Megadeth does. But definitely Creator. Shadows Fall, they've been teasing a new one for a long time. Hopefully that happens. But definitely Anthrax. King Diamond, are we going to get that double album this year? Who knows? But I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, definitely Megadeth, Creator, Shadows Fall, and Anthrax. There's a bunch of them. I heard Overkill's got a new one maybe coming out, so hopefully that happens. But definitely, Anthrax, Shadows Fall, Megadeth, and Testament. Creator, rather, Creator. Next one we've got is all right, collector scum. In your collection, is there a pesky gap in a band's discography that you're hoping to fill? Yes, there's a couple of Megadeth albums that I do not have on vinyl. The System Has Failed is one of them. I think there's a couple others in that late 90s, early 2000s era of Megadeth. And then Slayer, I'm missing Christ Illusion, Diabolic in Musica, and then I'm also missing Undisputed Attitude. So, not a big fan of either of those three albums from Slayer, but big Slayer fan. I want to have them in the collection. And there are some pretty good tunes on those albums, just not a fan of the albums as a whole. Next one we have is Evolution. Talk about a band or album that you think is successful moving forward creatively into their respective genre. And dude, why am I out of order over here? So this one's gonna be kind of weird, all right? And when I show the band, you're gonna kind of agree with me here, but it's Power Trip, right? So, and I know what you're thinking. Like the lead guy he passed away, but they've got a new guy, and from what I'm hearing, they played a handful of shows. They sound great. I could be wrong, but I think it's the vocalist from the band Fugitive, which is also a killer band. But I've got 3 albums here from Power Trip. This is I think it's like a bunch of demos. Opening Fire, 2008 to 2014, just demo tracks and stuff like that. And then I believe this is the first full length, which is Manifest Destination. Amazing record, just killer riffs, awesome breakdowns. And then the latest full length, which is Nightmare Logic. Awesome stuff. And then let's go find it. I had it. Here it is. It's the latest release, and it's the Flexi Disc, which is a Hornet's Nest. I think this is their last album with their vocalist who passed away, and his name's Riley or something like that. I could be wrong. For some reason, it's drawn a blank, but this is the latest release, which is just, again, the evolution is awesome from those demos through Manifest Decimation, Nightmare Logic, and then into Hornet's Nest. I just think they get better and better and better. And then unfortunately, the vocalist passed away. We'll see what happens, going forward. They're supposed to have a new album coming out at some point. I thought it was going to be at the end of last year, maybe 2026. But they sound great. And I know for me, and a lot of other people that like the band, you know, it's mainly that guitar sound that they've got. Those two guys are still there, and they've got some other dudes, you know, filling in. Like I said, I think it's the vocalist from Fugitive, but I can't be 100% sure. So we'll see what we got from them in the future. But I think that was a band that was on that awesome trajectory where every album was just getting better and better. There was a good evolution between albums for the band. All right, next one is Told You So. Man, I'm way off for some reason. Told You So. Show an album or albums that someone recommended to you that impressed you enough to purchase it. So there's two of them. One of them is Mark over at Metal Never Dies. It was Gate Creepers, Dark Superstition, and I did not like this album when I first listened to it. When it came out, I gave it a listen a couple times. I was like, yeah, it's just not really for me. Well, then I listened to Mark's review of the album, and I was like, you know what, dude, the passion he talked about it with, I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it another try. I gave it another listen, and dude, it clicked. I love it. The guitar work on this is phenomenal. Saw these guys live maybe not a couple years, maybe like a year and a half ago in Atlanta. They were the headliner, and Frozen Soul was the support act, which is kind of cool. But that was a really, really good show. These guys sound great live. This album is really, really good, and I'm glad I watched his video and gave it another chance. And then perhaps my favorite one that anyone has really recommended to me in a really long time, it's Neon Nightmares Faded Dream. And Matt over at the Accusation Network showed this on his channel, and I was like, you know, I really like Spirit Adrift, and I like Type O Negative. I'm going to give it a shot. And holy smokes, this thing blew me away. It is phenomenal. I still listen to it at least once or twice a month. It's such a great record. Highly recommend anybody checking this thing out if you haven't done so already. It's metal, but it's not like ridiculously fast. It's good heavy riffs, you know, doomish, you know, metal vibe, you know, Black Sabbath-y vibe, if you will, you know, Type O Negative and Spirit Adrift. There you go. But check this out. It's awesome. If you don't want something that's going 100 miles an hour, if you don't want something that's ridiculously brutal, give this a spin. You're going to love it. All right, so next one, we've got King Cheese. Recommend a power metal album to Marty Worm that you think is exceptional. He's always on the hunt. Okay, so I don't own a lot of power metal. But that one's going to be Savage Oath's Divine Battle. These guys are U.S., I would call them a traditional heavy metal, but they consider themselves power metal. On their own social media, they say they're a U.S.-based power metal band. But Savage Oath's Divine Battle, such a good record. It's got everything you want in a power metal album, a traditional heavy metal album. Don't take my word for it. Just give it a listen for yourself and let me know what you think. It is phenomenal. So, Marty, check this one out if you haven't done so already, dude. It's really, really good. What's next? We've got 2 Minutes to Midnight. What is the last album you bought in 2025? Well, I bought these at the same time online, and they came in on the same day. So this is Ventnator's Psychodrome. This album, these guys from Europe, I forgot what country, but just awesome, you know, traditional heavy metal. Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Thin Lizzy, except if you like those bands, you're going to like these guys as well. Great stuff. Their album, this one came out in 2025, at the end of last year. I talked about it on my Best of 2025 video, but I didn't have it in the collection because it didn't come in time, so couldn't do it in the video, but here it is. It came in the mail, so that was one of the last albums I bought in 2025, as well as Municipal Waste, Massive Aggressive Record Store Day, Black Friday Record Store Day. I didn't go because I was at a football game, but was able to pick this up from a record store's website afterwards, and it's on, you know, cool green and purple vinyl. So good stuff. All right, and I'm out of order. I don't remember which one I didn't show. All right, I think it was the last one, last page, number 7. I'm like way out of order. I'm like, why am I not showing this album sitting in front of me forever? But I missed one, so I'll just kind of go back. It's number 7 is Encore. Show an album that you think would be better if it's longer. This is Eternal Champions, first full-length, The Album of Ire. Amazing album, and it's 37 minutes long, but really when you give it a listen, the last 2 tunes, you know, are kind of like, almost like spoken word type of tunes, and like, you know, kind of goes, like, just kind of rambles along, you know, maybe instrumental a little bit too, but I think that if they kind of maybe redid them or maybe cut them out and put something else on there, I think it would just be a better album. I think it's an amazing album. I love it. It's awesome. I think it's better than their follow-up to this, which is, I think it was the Blood and Iron. I don't remember the name of the follow-up. I was going to say Blood and Iron, but that's not it. But anyway, Eternal Champions, The Armor of Iron, great record. Love it. This is their reissue that came out. Everything they put out, dude, on Bandcamp just goes ridiculously fast. This is a reissue I got. I think it's No Remorse Records. Yeah, No Remorse Records put it out. They did the reissue on both of them, and I picked them up. So that's like the bowl and ball. I kind of call it marbled, dark red marbled. But great stuff. I just think it'd be better if it was longer. Maybe cut out a couple tunes and add something else on there. Or just redo those tunes. So sorry, messed up the order. That was number 7. So let's go back to it. That was, I did the favorite album 20. Shit. I'm way off. I should have put the list over here. The King Cheese, 2 Minutes Midnight favorite album. Brain Drain. Okay, number 17 out of 20, Brain Drain. When feeling a musical burnout, what nostalgic album makes you always get excited about the genre and music again? And that is the very first heavy metal album that I can recall hearing. It's Motley Crue's Shout at the Devil. Love this record. This is the first metal album I can remember hearing. This is the album that started everything for me. And it just kind of went downhill from there, right? I'll do a video. I've talked about this like years ago, way back, I think in 2020, maybe 2021, when I was at my old house, when I just wasn't really good at this YouTube thing. I still am not. But I did the story of how I heard this album and, how I got into Motley Crue, how did I get into metal. And maybe I'll do another video of how I got into some of my favorite bands, and I'll kind of go through this story again, because it's kind of neat, coming from Catholic school, and then the Motley Crue with the pentagram. And back in those days, these guys were probably like the most evil looking stuff, that a kid my age could find. I mean, I wasn't looking at Venom albums back in those days. But yeah, Motley Crue, Shout the Devil. If I'm kind of feeling burned out and I really don't feel like, I don't know what I want to listen to, but I'm not 100% sure I feel like listening to like metal, but I want to hear something heavy, I'll put that on. And what's great about Motley Crue, Shout the Devil, the songs are all awesome. The riffs are great. It's heavy. I love it. Love everything on the album. But when I listen to that, it kind of, splinters off into something else. Like I'll be listening to, Knock 'Em Dead Kid, which is my favorite song on the album. And I'm like, you know what? I want to hear something heavier. I'll put on like Megadeth or Metallica or Slayer or something like that. And then that'll spin off. Okay, I want to listen to Obituary next or Death. And I just like how that goes for me. I don't know if that happens to you guys, where you might be listening to something that's maybe not as heavy, but it kind of like, all right, that was awesome. Now I'm going to go to this, which is a little bit heavier. So that happens to me sometimes. I listen to, to not just Motley Crue, but a lot of the hair bands as well. So the number 18 is Where's Waldo? Show a classic or older album that you somehow overlooked for many years that you loved as soon as you heard it. And that band is Artillery. The album is in Inheritance and by Inheritance. And I knew who Artillery was. I just never really liked them. And, I got into thrash metal in the late 80s, but there were a lot of, I was into, the Metallica, the Megadeth, the Slayer, stuff like that. And then in the 90s, because of high school, like early 90s, I started my freshman year of high school in the fall of 1990. And because I took the bus with some metalheads and hung out with some metalheads before school, I started, learning about Sepultura and a lot of other thrash bands that I maybe, overlooked. And they liked Artillery, but I just wasn't into them. I just kind of slipped by me, which happens. There's a lot of albums on my shelf that slipped by me during those times, and maybe during college or after college I discovered them and liked them. But the first time I heard Artillery, just wasn't into it. But then, they reissued this one, and I picked it up because I thought it was, it looked cool. And I was like, damn, this album was awesome, dude. And I liked it. And I started listening to some of their other stuff, and I really liked it. And I was like, man, where's this band been? I've just been missing out. These guys are really good. I used to follow a guy on Instagram from Australia that has a ridiculously huge heavy metal record collection. I forget his name, and he's no longer on Instagram that I can recall. Like, he just disappeared one day. But like I said, ridiculously cool heavy metal collection on vinyl. And I want to say, like, one year he posted pictures and videos of Artillery came to Australia with another 80s thrash band and played shows in Australia. Did like a little Australian tour, and he said it was phenomenal. And then that kind of like sparked my interest to listen to it and then pick up this album. So that was some years ago, because when this album was already out when I went to look for it. So yeah, By Inheritance by Artillery. They were the band that I kind of, older band that I kind of overlooked, didn't really like them, and now I really dig them. So that kind of concludes the records. The last two questions are kind of about myself, I guess. So hello, my name is, was there a video or stream that you participated in during 2025 that you're especially proud of? You know, include a link in the description. I was not on any streams in 2025. I wasn't asked, I don't think. I know a good buddy of ours, George over at George G's Room of Rock, had mentioned maybe wanting to do something. I do this on my phone. I'm not the most technologically advanced guy, so if that was going to happen, I would need somebody else to kind of set that up and help me out. I did do a couple of them back in the day. Vance, a good buddy, VK, you guys all know him from the Zipro channel. I did a couple with him back in the day. He's been instrumental to my channel. Love the guy. Can't thank him enough. He's a really good friend of mine. I got to meet him in person in Chicago when Metallica did Lollapalooza and hang out with him for a little bit. Didn't get to watch the show with him, unfortunately. There were some circumstances that happened, and I ended up going in the snake pit, so I kind of feel pretty bad about that I get to hang out with him, which I would have liked to, but super cool dude. Like I said, he's been instrumental in my channel. There's a handful of guys that have been instrumental in my channel, but just speaking of Vance in particular, I did a video with him back in the day and when I was new to the channel, and he just kind of we did a live video, and he was just asking me questions about, you know, my collection, what bands, and, you know, what I got into metal, and other people, I guess, were jumping on his thing. Like, he would see a question and they were asking me the questions, I'd answer. That was kind of cool. He was just kind of helping me out, get, you know, more followers, because I think at the time I might have had like under 100. And then he and I also did an unboxing video together for Metallica's Vinyl Club, one of their releases. We did unboxing. So those are the only times I've ever done like a collab, if you will, or a streaming type of video. I'm totally open to it, but like I said, not the most technically advanced guy, so someone's gonna kind of have to like do that work and then maybe like, you know, dial me in or patch me in somehow, you know, or let me know how to do it. I can do Zoom meetings on my phone. I've done those before. And then the last one, last question, number 20, Into Glory Ride. Name a band that you want to see release one more great album before they kind of call it quits for good. And I saw this mentioned when I watched George G's Room of Rock, his video for the Metal Tag 2026. He mentioned Rat. Completely agree on Rat. And I know that Steven and Warren are doing shows, nothing around my area. I don't really think anything even on the East Coast. I could be wrong, but nothing anywhere near me. But they're doing shows, they're doing Rat tunes. And I would love to see that. I mean, I know they can't do a full reunion. Obviously, Robin has passed away, so can't do that. But I would love to see them. I saw them way back in the day, like maybe 2000, you know, 99, 2000, 2001, in that area. They came to Attleboro, Massachusetts, in an itty-bitty little tiny club. Saw Vince Neil there as well on a solo tour. But Rat came, and I think it was Steven and Warren and maybe the drummer, I think. But it wasn't like the full band, obviously, with Robin, but I think they were only missing the bass player. I could be wrong. Maybe the bass player was there, they're missing the drummer. I don't remember, but it definitely was Warren and Steven, and they did all the Rat hits. It was amazing. I'd love to see that again. Cinderella. I think, you know, the guitar player's passed away, and I think maybe is the bass player passed away as well. I've seen Tom Kiefer before solo, but I'd like to see that. I'd love to see Dawkins reunite. They had a show about 20 minutes from me a couple years back at a little restaurant called Loco's Bar and Grill, but that got canceled, and I think what it was the promoter promoted it, but it never really was going to happen anyway. The guy was trying to scam people out of money. I actually was out of town that day, and I bought a ticket. It was like $30, and I scheduled my flight to get back in the early afternoon so I could see that show, and then, you know, it got canceled, so I was like, whatever. But that sucks. So I'd like to see that. Poison, they were supposed to tour this year, and then Bret Michaels, I guess, wanted more money, so they canceled it. Now he's going to do a solo tour, which he's doing Poison tunes anyway. I'd like to see Poison get back together and do their thing. Motley Crue's going on a tour. I'd like to. I don't want to hear another Motley Crue album, but I would like to see Poison, Cinderella, Rat, definitely like that. There's a bunch of them right now that I'm kind of, you know, forgetting. I'm sure there's some cool thrash bands I'd love to see kind of get back and do that thing. Skid Row, come on, dudes. let's just call it a day and say put away our differences. Sebastian, get back together with the band and put out something. That's another one. A lot of these are 80s like hair, but there's definitely some thrash bands that I think I'm missing. But I would like to see a lot of those bands kind of get together and, you know, put their heads together, put their egos aside, and put one last good album out before, you know, they get too old to do it. I saw a video the other day with Stephen Piercy from Rat. He's looking pretty rough, so this might be kind of the last go round anyway. So anyway, guys, there you have it. That's my Metal Tag 2026. Hope you guys dug the video. Leave me a comment down below if you want to talk about anything that I showed. And looking forward to watching all of you guys' Metal Tag 2026 as well. Already watched a bunch of them. Looking forward to checking out a few more of them. So anyway, appreciate you guys checking out the channel. And I'll have another video of you guys very soon. Cheers, everybody. Have a great weekend.